So I'm going to move along in the first book of the three-part book series of the Adventures of Susan MeeLing, Scuba Diver Extraordinaire, Volume 1, Chapters 1 through 4, written by me, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Reverend MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle. I've got a few nicknames. So, still in Chapter 1. Okay, so in reference to the pictures that I had posted on Facebook, the underwater travel system is my idea. I know I kind of went, what is the term, dark, because I'll admit, I had emailed those pictures to not just Shark Week, but I had emailed a few corporations in reference to that. And though I only put Shark Week in here, what was it? I had sent an email to NOAA and NASA with the pictures. And then I had also sent, who is it? Patty, the Professional Association of Diving Instructors, that email. And then, who else? Oh, I sent it to the Navy for the United States of America. Sent it to the Navy. But all of the emails, now that I think about it, were all worded the same, that basically nobody was interested in my idea of that. And when I had written to NASA, I had brought up points in reference to space travel ideas. So, and keep on trying to do and be better. And so, I mean, I'll be completely honest. I didn't know that there was like other space companies, or any of that stuff. So like, was that guy's name Elon Musk? Although I kind of want to know if Elon Musk named his car company after Nikola Tesla, because if he did, oh, when I was a child, some of the discussions he and I would have, because being a child, basically the most amount of time, ironically, that I had spoken with spirits usually was not in a cemetery, despite what people might think. Actually, the majority of time that I would have different discussions with spirits when I was a child had been when I would take my dog A, or short for AWOL, although I called him Anubis. We'd go and sit in the backyard with the lilac bushes behind us and the raspberry bushes. It was like kind of a weird L shape because of the fruit and vegetable garden that was behind where the area A was kept. So I would take him out there. I would read books to who I called Anubis. Although I didn't learn that Anubis apparently is a deity name until, well, it wasn't when I was 13 and studying for my confirmation class at Old Tenet Presbyterian Church, and it was not when I was looking into paganism and shamanism at that time. It actually wasn't until after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, whenever I was going through the Reiki attunement classes. That was when I learned that Anubis apparently is the name of an Egyptian deity. Had no idea. But if that Elon Musk guy and other space guys, but like whatever, not being rude, just the guy who runs that company or whatever, did name that Tesla car company after, Tesla's last name. This the discussions we had when I was a child. I mean, it depends on what you believe spiritually and religiously, of course. But yeah, that was, and oh, I bet that if he had named that after Nikola Tesla, that like he would get a kick out of some of the conversations and discussions I had with, I was a child, give me a break. But, like Einstein, he had he still does, he's still around, but as far as spirit-wise, but, he has he has a sense of humor, like he really does. I don't know if many people would understand that, but he really, when he was alive, he had a huge sense of humor, but, spirit form, he had a little different, but not by much. And then I would guesstimate he'd probably want to talk like about Thomas Belle, cause duh. I'm not trying to be rude or anything like that, but like Thomas Belle, really? I mean, interesting guy. But anyway, so yeah, I kind of like my Medal of Honor art project, which I had thought about doing, when I went through the class for that elective at that time during my confirmation class. Kind of like how I thought about that then when I was a child and going, swimming in the ocean and stuff like that at Point Pleasant Beach and Sandy Hook, and going out well past where I should have. So easily too. So easily, just no problem. And just kind of like standing on the tall buoys and stuff like that. Although the ones that have the orange balls, those were fun because they spin. And so I don't recommend going out there. Not unless like you have some protective gear. Because there's some fishies out there. And if they don't like you, they will let you know, because you won't be going back to the surface. That's how you will know. They won't let you surface, or if they let you surface, that's because, the fishies are like, well, you could do some good, so we'll just let you know, don't do that again, cause no. But anyway, so I had come up with the idea of the underwater travel system back then, and I had talked about certain aspects with some of those spirits back when I was a child, and we had discussed certain points of the mathematics and stuff. The irony now, I went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math. So, but yeah, there were a few, and then there was this guy with, what was his? I can't remember his name, but we discussed the doc stuff, and it when I was a child, and my biological parents didn't really care. So, when at the house in New Jersey, I'd just play outside in the backyard. And I'd have my dog with me. And, the irony, apparently, in the Egyptian belief system of, spirituality and religion and stuff, apparently he's the bringer of souls. And so the irony of ironies you know, he brings the souls to God to be like, okay, you know, whatever. And so, you know, just kind of do, oh yeah, well, that'd be a good, and you know, whatever. I mean, you know, again, depending on what you believe. But, you know, nobody asked me before. And then when I drew it up, I tried to explain it to the lawyer on LegalZoom, and he didn't scuba dive, so he had no idea what I was talking about. That I spoke with on the phone, and my now ex-boyfriend, Jesse Leroy Hoover Jr., he looked at my drawings and he was just like, yeah, no, no. And it's like, yeah. Like, I tried to do the whole patent thing, and apparently it was an issue. Trying to explain it, it's like, all right, well, you know, I mean, realistically, it can happen, it can be done. But, you know, I mean, there are a few things that have to occur beforehand. So, you know, I mean, and I do have, and I'll discuss that in the books as I go through. So, yeah, I had been swimming with mer people since I was a child. Anytime I could get out to the Atlantic, it was like, oh, beach time, yes! In the ocean. Like, as quickly as my little feet could run, just and in the water. And gone. Just gone. And it's kind of funny because there's this, like, apparently they didn't find the anglerfish until like 2002. And I had gone to MAST, the Marine and Science Technology School. And during the interview, I'm like, so have you found this fishy yet? And they're like, yeah, we're marine biologists. We don't call them fishies. I think that might have been the question I got wrong. And so I described, you know, what essentially is the anglerfish, and we're just like, so cute. And yeah, so, but, you know, they're so cute, such a cutie patootie, such a cutie, just, I mean, you know, what I read online, that's not the size I remember of that anglerfish at all, because, yeah, he was, like, I mean, even as a biological adult, like, that fishy's mouth is bigger. Cute little fish. But the TV's in a little like, just so cute. But anyway, so, in reference to the scuba diving aspect, and I mean, I would guesstimate that law enforcement agencies, specifically those that have scuba diving in their background, might have wanted to speak with me about that whole scuba diving incident that I'll get to. Obviously, I survived. Obviously. But there was some stuff that was going on at McCoy Elementary School in reference to making sure my daughter was okay and making sure my son was okay. Which probably did not allow that to occur at that time. So, yeah. And so then there's a few books I wrote. I sent those books to law enforcement, various branches. That includes CID, both, well, only the CID in San Antonio. I didn't think about taking that to the CID in Washington State at JBLM until like right now. But I would guesstimate they might have gotten a copy of that at this point. And then, you know, all the other branches of government, not all of them, but, you know, enough where it could be like, here, you know, like Homeland Security, especially in reference to my Medal of Honor art project. Because they apparently are like the top company for a couple of groups, and so discussed my tattoos in those books, and they're mine, they're nobody's, but because, well, I own them, it's my flesh, and duh, I mean, granted, the artists did do a phenomenal job, but they're still mine. My idea, they don't look like anybody else's, despite, like, some of them are realistically, there are a few flashes, but they're different because they're in my flesh. I mean, you could do the same flash on 20 different people, and it's not going to look the same because realistically, everybody's skin pigment is different. I mean, you could have like 5 people from the same bloodline, and their skin tone will be different, as well as the way their muscles move, and just all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, and then I discussed about how my biological mother, along with my roommate Alicia at the time, had discussed making an online dating profile for me, and I did not need them to do that. I did not want them to do that. I told them not to. And then Alicia's like, oh, you could have a blind date with this guy, and you have a blind... It's like, I don't want to, but like, that was after I got a bunch of messages from the guy I was dating at the time, and I was like, well, I guess. And apparently that might have been an issue because I didn't know about hacking or stalking or any of that stuff online. So there is that. Oh, and then there was some stuff that I was taught by my great-grandfather, also my buckum, which those who have that understanding understand what that reference is. So, and if not, you're not gonna find that necessarily easily online, because that's specific information that only certain individuals understand. So then, yeah, so recently, since this is it's about to be the 25th of March in 2020, but in towards the end of December and then the beginning of January, I had worked on these 3 books, as well as the modern day book by Reverend Susan MeeLing. You can go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, and you can look at the pictures and the stuff, and you'll be able to click on the pictures of the book and or link or a little button and take you right to where you can buy it online. But yeah, so going over, so I do have to pause this because no, I'll do that in a different video and focus here. So now I can see more clearly of how many others could view certain aspects of finding a silver lining and finding the silver lining in the wrong way if they didn't read both. Like if they got the short book, which would be Finding the Silver Lining by Susan MeeLing, they would only think that I looked at things in a humorous sort of way. Whereas if they only read Finding a Silver Lining by Susan MeeLing, they would only be like, why? and have difficulties. And so that's why I wrote them in 2 different books, albeit the same stuff, because I wanted to make sure that, you know, you had the ability, instead of with the techie stuff, with, yes, and I understand with the techie stuff, you could do the windows or whatever, but like then I can't be the only person who has issues with technology. I also figured, like, especially in reference to the people I sent the physical books to, that they had already been on techie stuff a lot during the day, and maybe it would be a way for them to like be able to not be staring at techie stuff the whole time, and so they could just be like, okay, I need a break from that. because that was a lot. So I'm gonna, oh, oh, that's funny. Good. That's happy, 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 happy in comparison. And so, that was, I mean, yes, I understand you could do that with the techie stuff. For those who don't have issues with technology, for those who aren't on technology all the time, but for the ones that I sent the physical books to, and that did include the people that I remembered from New Jersey and Illinois, because, I mean, technology is so much a part of life nowadays. And while, like, maybe it was helpful to see it in literal black and white and not such a bright white, because the screen white in comparison to a page white is a little bit different. And so it might have been like helpful for them to give their eyes a rest, but still, get their thoughts going and stuff. So, I'm a little weird, I don't deny that. So you could kind of consider it being, in some ways, a version of the modern day Bible as far as finding a silver lining and finding the silver lining, because of the different aspects of, but in a more modern time frame. I mean, and I'm talking like all versions of Holy Scriptures, especially when you consider certain aspects of the other book series that I had written, the Paroxysm of the Lotus series, in reference to like the Psalm of Psalms, or the Song of Psalms for the New Testament, but written centuries ago. And then, is it centuries or millennia? Millennium, because it's like over two. This point, realistically, the Song of Psalms was written like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. So I don't know if that's like millennia or century or what, but there's so many words. Anyway, and then of course the Kennedy Curse, the failsafe book. There's that for like the more like modern era thing in reference to like Revelations. And then, the Curious Children book series and stuff like that. So there is that. And then not forgetting like the prophetic aspects, because you wouldn't be landing at the bottom of the ocean without technology. Or, well, you're not supposed to land at the bottom of the ocean. Not where I did. And surfacing. But, like submarines, you wouldn't have that if it wasn't for technology. You wouldn't have the sonar equipment if it wasn't for technology. You wouldn't have satellites if it wasn't for technology. So, the aspects of like, I mean, being a female goddess, but, technically the term God, because, there are those issues with like machismo and stuff like that. But not everybody has that, but, then there are the ones who do. But scuba diving wouldn't occur without technology. Not at all, especially with all the like Bluetooth type of technology. Wouldn't occur. I mean, Bluetooth is considered technology still, right? Yeah. So, yeah, so this is, I guess, technically in conjunction with my 8 prior books that you can find on my website, www.susanmeeling.com. I'll have a link in the little thingamabob below. But yeah, so I landed essentially in the Matthias Abyss at the Atlantic area of the ocean, which is pretty much in the Bermuda Triangle vicinity. And that was when diving at the USS or USNS Vandenberg in 2009. And so, yeah. And then, I pretty much figured in personal opinion, obviously children and teenagers and adolescents can read like the Curious Children book series and find like like specifically volume 1, what is a family, and in volume 2, what's the difference. But even adults, I mean, if you look at like law enforcement, military branches, fire department, EMS, they're all able to kind of work together despite their jobs being different and stuff. And you can even see in some ways, like, and it's not like mean competition, but like you got the Navy versus the Army, football team stuff, and you got the little back and forth between kind of sibling rivalry when you think about it, but like on the football field. And then, which is a quick little funny story. One day I was driving to go volunteer when I was in Seattle to a club, and I had heard Don McLean's Bye Bye American Pie or something like that. And there was a part where it was like, and then the football players took the field, but the marching band refused to yield. And I saw a former Marine. I was like, hey, with the stuff that was going on at the time with the football players taking a knee. And being like, the American flag, and it was like, I mean, if it wasn't for military guys, they wouldn't have the right to do that. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I understand, if it wasn't for the First Amendment right, you wouldn't have the right to peacefully protest. But at the same time, personal opinion on the American flag, it's personal opinion. And so, but, like, what would happen if, like, military guys, just went onto the field and were like, during the Star Spangled Banner, and they were the ones playing the song. I completely forgot at that point in time about the Army and Navy football teams. Not being mean, you guys, just, I had a head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. I do forget things. So, yeah, and then not in the ancestral way, the way my ex-in-laws, not my ex-brother-in-law, Tony Walker Nichols, like he was like, ew, 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 ew. And there are others in that side of the family that are like, no, incest is bad. But then there's like Susie Marie Nichols Lopez and Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, who both attempted, just like their brother, to defend incest to me. And I'm like, no. But, if they want to stay married because they're not getting a divorce from me, meaning I am not going to perform the divorce for them to get a divorce from, their brother, my dead ex-husband. Not going to do it. Not going to happen. I'm not going to divorce them because they spiritually married him years ago. I mean, it's 2008, the year he died. It's 2020 now. They're coming up on their 12-year marriage anniversary. How sweet. What a ideal little karmic aspect. But in reference to the Curious Children book series, on a more happy note, there are plenty of people who have actually gone through adoption services and foster care agencies. My own biological father did. That's why I've always given him much more leniency in a lot of ways than my biological mother. I know I wrote, sperm and egg donor aspects, but it realistically, because of certain aspects, and if Mike didn't know about the stuff that was going on with Anna and Patricia, it's one of those, again, I always gave him more leniency because of what he endured in foster care and in orphanages. I mean, he's a first-generation Chinese male. Those who know the Asian culture understand a Chinese male being given up for adoption for his sister to be kept. It's a big deal. And so, I gave him a lot more leniency because of the background, but also because of that. And so that was part of a way to assist with others, because especially with also what occurred in reference to my daughter. And then, other stuff, but trying, and even Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, her husband at the time, he had gone through, if I'm not mistaken, he had actually gone through an orphanage or a couple foster care stuff. And it was one of those, like, I knew that, I mean, there's 3 examples, and I knew others that went through that. I mean, people that I went to school with in Asher Holmes Elementary School, Marlboro Middle School, Marlboro High School, the brief amount of time that I was there, St. John Vianney High School, not forgetting Crystal Lake South High School, as well as summer camp. And I'm talking like Marlboro Rec summer camp, as well as when I went to Baptist Camp Lebanon. There were people who were, adopted or in foster care and stuff like that. And it's one of those, like, I knew that those 3 were not the only one. The only difference is that, I couldn't remember all of their names. And, I'm not saying that there weren't, since I'm, discussing SCUBA, or supposed to be, I wouldn't be surprised if there were scuba divers who had gone through that, or, anyone in the different lifestyles. And I wouldn't be surprised either if there were certain types of, like, different types of adoption, even as an adult, being like, come here, and stuff like that, So, I mean, I would guesstimate, I could be wrong, but I would guesstimate that could be, like, helpful for that sort of stuff. But it's a personal thing. And then all different ages, whether you choose to tell the child about that or wait till they're an adult, or, whatever, just that way they could have that, kind of like, hey, at least you had that. At least there was that for you. And so I'm going to, real quick, they played Spin the Bottle with their cousins. Like, just, meaning Susie Marie Nichols Lopez and Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen. And it was their idea to play Spin the Bottle. And it's like, that brings a literal and figurative term to kissing cousins. So I'm gonna stop this particular YouTube video on that, and like and share my official videos. I mean, I don't always say that in each thing, because I've done a few videos, especially with what's been going on recently. But yeah, you guys have a good one, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll have all that information stuff. Oh yeah, and see this tattoo right here. I'm sure that some of you might have been like, well, there's a picture of the ocean, like at the navel chakra. Well, this is a combination of, like, between 3 and 5 pictures that I took to, irony of irony, a Navy or former Navy guy who, was like, hey, I want to do a tattoo right here. And he was like, okay, what of? And I was like, this. And so I showed him the camera, because I brought it in with me, and he looked at it and he was like, where are these pictures taken? I'm like, oh, the bottom of the ocean. Like, duh, like, you see the ocean floor, right? You were in the Navy. And he's like, yeah. Where? And I was like, oh, the ones I'm showing you, this is this part's like Cozumel, because of the sunset part, but, like, then the bottom of the ocean one, well, those are pictures from Cozumel. And he's like, where in Cozumel? This is in Cozumel. Yeah. What part? Oh, the other side of the island. Not the part closest to, but, like, the part that's closest to the Gulf of Mexico. Oh, okay. Oh my God. And then he's like, and what about because you see the different stuff. And so different plant life, or aquatic plant life, let me clarify. And so he's like, were you at the Great Barrier Reef, and that's why you have pictures like that, like on the descent? No. That's Boca Raton, left out of Boca. And he was just, oh, okay, what about that one? Oh, well, that's when I was at the Vandenberg. And he's like, oh, are you going to want that in the picture? And I was like, well, you could do a little thing like that for a reminder, irony, of this one portion of one of the pictures I'll get to in one of these books. And so for those who, doubt, that's a picture from the Vandenberg when I was ascending, and those who were in the Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard especially, those guys would be like, yeah, so I know what part of the ship that is, and I don't know what the name of that part of the ship is. But on the other side is a little fishy, and he is just so cute. But I'll get to that because that's in, I think that one's in this book. So got a few videos to get through. So you guys have a good one.